Thanks I Hate It is a podcast done by me and Brianne and Christian. And just every week we come in with another, wacky story or weird story, or just ultimately something you really didn't want to know. You probably didn't need to know, but now you know. And hopefully by the end of it, you say thanks. I hate it. Welcome to Thanks I Hate It. We are your hosts, Bree
and Christian, and today we are joined by very special guests,
Jasmine and Katie.
So today on Thanks I Hate It, we're going to be talking about this New Orleans ghost story called
the LaLaurie Mansion. Do you guys know anything about it?
No. Not a clue.
No, you've never heard
it. It sounds spooky.
Just the name.
Just the name.
I mean that's what we hope for.
Hope.
After all, this is a podcast about information you don't know, and now you know.
Hopefully no one dies in this story.
Oh, honey.
Baby girl.
It is a ghost story for a reason.
Oh, dear darling. You're in danger. So, let's hop right into it. LaLaurie was actually named Mary McCarthy, and she was a woman in New Orleans. She was a Creole socialite, and essentially she became known later for being a serial killer who tortured and murdered slaves inside of her household. So for the actual history portion of it, she kind of grew up in New Orleans, and she ended up marrying 3 times. 2 of her marriages, she was widowed. Ooh. And it's actually for they're unconfirmed reasons of death. So a lot of times people speculate about
she might have killed them.
Exactly. People a lot of times there's that I'm just this young woman and I don't like my husband anymore. I'm just going to murder him. And then that's what people think that she did.
And then take all their money.
Yes, and definitely take all their money. She had many children. She had them each with different spouses, so every single one of her marriages resulted in children. And
how many?
There is one from the first marriage, who's also named Marie. There is 4 from the second marriage. And then there's 1 from the last marriage.
You can tell which one's her favorite. Oh.
What do you mean? Oh, it's because she's named by her. Never mind. I take it.
The second one has 4.
You sure it was just favorite as in personality, though?
Oh. I think it was more because they were married for the longest time. They were married for 8 years.
Yeah.
The first one was married for 2. And then the last one is the one that she died married to. However, they only had 1 child. That was because
Did she die first or he died first?
That's actually unconfirmed. So you're going to learn that later in her life, there's not a lot of things known about her because she left. So the actual...
I love that.
So the part of our story that's really important is that later she is, living in this huge mansion, this Creole mansion, and there's a lot of like rumors going around about her, about how she like abuses her slaves and abuses her servers and even her children. Like there was a lot of rumors about her children being abused by her. And one night there's this fire. There's this huge fire that starts in our kitchens, and when the police or when the fire department comes, they, go down, they put out the fire, and then they see her slave, who was a 70-year-old woman that was chained to the stove. And the woman, it was a suicide attempt by her because she didn't want to be punished by LaLaurie. So she sent them upstairs, and upstairs in the attic, there was like this like torture chamber for slaves, and they found a whole bunch of slaves that were just in different states of, maimed. They were all, hurt and in danger. There's like tons of stories. Like these rumors did have like, some ground. Like there were slaves that tried to kill themselves inside of her house because they didn't want to be punished. There was times when she was rude to servers outside of the house. And
that's crazy.
After the fire, a huge mob of like the citizens all stormed her house. They refused to let the mob in. So they broke down the door, started freeing all of her slaves, and essentially destroyed the whole mansion. In the ruckus, she and her husband, and she had 2 daughters living with her at the time, were all able to escape, and they ended up moving to France. That's why there's not a lot of stuff about her later years, because she had moved to France away from the public so that she couldn't be persecuted.
To add on to that, it's actually very undetermined, because some people say that she only went to France for a little bit just to get away, but then returned to New Orleans and continued to live there, and that she's buried near the cathedral.
Oh. And while this is a rumor that definitely goes around, there are like aspects of things that were, definitely set in France, Paris, France.
Mm-hmm.
Like she has a gravestone there that just says that she died at 62, and like that's it.
Oh,
that's a little fishy.
Yeah.
And that's essentially the history portion of the LaLaurie story. But that isn't where people keep talking about LaLaurie.
So, believers in the paranormal all know this case because it is one of the well-known American cases of paranormal activity. So, New Orleans is known for being one of the most suspicious places in America, ranging from the practices of voodoo to one of the largest cases of hauntings, and one of them being the mysterious LaLaurie Mansion. After it was destroyed and burned down, it was restored by the Historical Society to the T. And it was used as a girls' academy. And that's where the troubles began. So,
the slaves like come back and haunt them.
So what happened was the girls would experience strange occurrences in the academy, and they would always report to the headmistress that a woman would cut them. They would always appear with mysterious bruises and cuts on their forearms with no explanation. Now, skeptics believe that it was simply girls bullying each other. But every single case has ended with them telling the headmistress that it was that woman. Now, many speculate that it is the ghost of Madame LaLaurie because she still thirsts for torture, even in the afterlife.
Oh, wow.
Going along with that, it was an apartment complex, eventually. But the issue was that it was quickly abandoned because of many reports of spiritual activity. Now, there are many accounts of activity in the attic. I think we all know why. And people speculate that it's the spirits of the slaves who are not able to move on because they had such a tragic death. So they spend their time wailing and weeping in the attic, causing ruckus upstairs, and always moving things and yelling for help.
Oh,
my
no, no, no,
goodness.
no, no.
And this site has been
Why
acclaimed.
do these people not do their research when, like, they stay here?
The thing is that because it was a good couple decades afterwards, the people of New Orleans kind of were hush-hush about
They
it.
shoved it
It
under
was
the rug.
it was very taboo because it was such a horrific occurrence. So some people, and especially the Girls Academy, a lot of the girls were very young, so they wouldn't know what happened years prior.
Makes sense. Wow.
It's still standing today, actually, the apartment complex that was built later. And people go and visit it all the time. It's like a huge thing for people to go and visit. It's open 24 hours.
Wow, 24 hours.
It's one of the biggest spots for ghost tours to visit, and even there are
go spend a
stories
night.
of tours simply entering the property from the sidewalk, and there are reports of people being grabbed, pulled by the hair. Women are molested. Men are made to feel very nauseous and queasy, and there are reports of people spontaneously fainting.
Honestly, I would faint too.
For a place to be such a very busy part of New Orleans, such as I believe it's the French Quarter, or very near it on Royal Street,
Yeah.
people do not walk on that sidewalk. Every time they near it, about a couple buildings before it, they cross the street.
I would
Why?
too.
Because locals,
What do you mean, why? Have
Do
you
they just have like an
happened?
uneasy feeling?
locals know what happens
Oh wow.
when you enter the property.
Exactly.
Oh no.
Tell him who bought it. Tell him who bought it.
So, in the early 2000s, out of the blue, Nicolas Cage purchased the property out of nowhere, and at a very low price too, because no one wanted to buy
No one
it. It
wants
was
the
on the
haunted-
market, but no one wanted to buy it.
So he just
Wow,
bought
she's
it
gonna get
spontaneously.
Yeah,
Maybe it was for like one of his movies.
I'm looking for a next national treasure.
He actually said he'd wanted it for privacy because nobody's going to the LaLaurie Mansion. Like, that's why he bought it. He wanted
What?
the privacy. Yeah, there was
To
like
live
this whole...
there.
Yeah.
So he wanted to get haunted, is what you're basically saying.
He essentially wanted, like, so it's this huge, like, thing. Like, nobody goes there. Like, nobody's going to pay attention to it. So
If
he...
you wanted privacy, go to the mountains, not somewhere haunted. Like, what the heck?
You said it's open 24 hours, right?
It's open 24 hours
So
now.
you can just like pull up at like 2 a.m. be like, oh, let's go.
Ghost hunting.
Who
Let's go
at
ghost
2
hunting.
a.m.?
I would just say-
No.
Yes, that's like a night out with friends.
That's that.
Bro, can we have a sleepover in the LaLaurie Mansion? I feel like that should be, like, a question we could ask. Like, should we have a sleepover in the LaLaurie Mansion?
Love that.
No.
I
Yeah.
would.
I
I
would
down.
would. I
Why?
would.
Bring out the Ouija board, like do all of it.
What? No.
I don't know about
no,
Ouija
no,
board, but
no, that's not.
you know, maybe just EMF detectors.
Christian does his
Very-
little
His
rock-
with the mirrors.
spiritual callings.
Oh, no.
One other place that is very linked to the LaLaurie Mansion is the St. Louis Cathedral. Now, this property is it's a whole story on its own, but it is said to people who go there to pray and the priests who live there that there are frequent visits from spirits of what they assume are slaves.
Bro, I didn't even know that.
So, a lot of believers say that, and even mediums, they say that they're trapped there because Madame LaLaurie's actions and spirit actually keep them there. They go to the cathedral in hopes to be freed.
Oh.
And wouldn't you know it, many pastors claim to see Madame LaLaurie's spirit
Oh.
inside the cathedral. And when they listen to what she's saying, because she wails and cries out, she is begging for forgiveness because she is eternally damned to stay in a forever purgatory here on earth.
Oh, no, homegirl.
That kind of makes sense. Like she's trying to like beg
Oh,
for
no,
forgiveness
no,
of like her
no,
torturing.
homegirl. If you're gonna torture people, then you're gonna stay here, okay?
Wait, I have a question.
Yeah.
Do they know like the reason why she like tortured her slaves?
A lot of people think that during her marriages, she kind of just went crazy. Like, there isn't very much
Felt
to
that.
it, but a lot of people think that her third marriage is just what finally broke her,
Felt that.
and
So-
that she had just, finally lost it.
And she needed a way to get out her anger and her frustrations.
Got you.
Yeah.
So in her third marriage is when she started torturing her slaves.
Not the third marriage, I
Play a
believe.
sport.
I think
Go-
it's-
Play a
go-
s-
I
go
do
croquet or
believe it.
something.
The children were being abused in the second marriage, but the third marriage is when they moved into the LaLaurie Mansion, and that's when the tortures on the slaves happened.
That makes sense.
She actually, so the mansion was being built before she got there. So she actually had her own input being put into like how she wanted the mansion built, including the slaves' quarters, which was where the majority of this all went down. She kind of built her own torture chamber.
So yeah, that is the story of the LaLaurie Mansion.
Wow. That is crazy. That is like.
No, imagine staying there though. Like I could not.
You can hang out with like
like-
Nicolas Cage though.
I can hang out with him outside. Not no.
Nicolas Cage and me can hang out across the street. We don't need to get.
To get inside.
Across the street.
Have you guys seen the building?
No.
No.
Oh, okay. I'm pulling up photos. Oh wait, you pull up photos.
Okay, so it's a very beautifully constructed piece. Looking from the outside in, you would never expect for anything bad to be happening because it honestly looks like a
Like
dream
an apartment.
mansion.
It's beautiful. Isn't a beautiful apartment complex?
You need to turn up your brightness.
Oops.
That's pretty.
So
That's
that's not
really
what it
pretty.
looks like in like back in her day,
Back
right?
then, no.
No.
Oh, it was a huge like Creole mansion. Like it was.
They only reconstructed a portion of it. And rightly so, because could you imagine if you
Why-
had all that land?
Why reconstruct the whole thing? That's not the move at all.
So anyway, that's the story of LaLaurie, and I feel like all anyone can say about it is thanks. I hate it.
That was
They
some
should stay together.
probably. So we can say something like,
Hey guys.
now there's some information you didn't know, but now you know.
Thanks. I
And-
hate it.
And,
I hate it.
oh, they can say it because we told them the information.
Oh, perfect.
And then you get, and then your response to what, like, now there's
We
some.
hate it.
Now,
Just kidding.
now,
I hate it. You wanna
now
stay
there's some
there?
information that you didn't know, but now you know. And then you both say,
Thanks. I hate it.
so ready?
So there's some information you didn't need to know.
But now you know.
Thanks. I hate it.
Thank you for listening, and make sure to subscribe to the Rosa Reviews newsletter and to never miss another episode of
Thanks, I Hate It.
And please make sure to follow us on Instagram at The Rosie Review, and we'll see you next time on
Thanks, I Hate It.
Goodbye.